Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. In my opinion, the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 50, is wildly mispriced. Right? I think this line is absurd. Right? The value for me, the play to make, is to take the underdog, the Denver Broncos, and to get the 6 points. Right? Denver plus 6 is the play. Let's talk about it. I believe the public's attention span, the casual sports bettor's attention span, isn't that wide. It doesn't go back more than a couple of years. Right? Let's look at the quarterbacks who've played in the last 2 Super Bowls. You have 2 obvious first-round Hall of Famers, right? Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. And you have a guy in his 20s, Russell Wilson. Now, I believe the public has been misled by the fact that Russell Wilson, the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, is an outlier. In other words, Wilson is unusually mature. He's unusually put together. He has unusual elite leadership skills in his mid-20s. Right? Simply put, Russell Wilson is precocious. He's not someone to base your understanding on because he's different. He's unusual. In one word, he's special. Right? So we watched Russell Wilson beat Peyton Manning 2 years ago, blow him out in a Super Bowl, looked surgical doing so. Right? Then we saw Russell Wilson come within 1 yard of beating Tom Brady. So that leads us to the 2015-2016 season. We see another guy in his mid-20s. Right? This guy is bigger than Russell Wilson, might be faster than Russell Wilson, certainly has a stronger arm than Russell Wilson. Right? He's won national championships in college and in junior college. Right? This guy's the leading MVP candidate this year. 35 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns. Right? He's on the number 1 rated team, the highest seeded team in the NFC. Right? The offense he led is the top rated offense in the NFL. But my point to you is Cam Newton right now is about to go up against the best defense in the National Football League. A defense that just stopped Tom Brady. Right? Whether or not you thought New England should have kicked that field goal and set up a possibility to tie the game on that last drive. Right? Can we agree that the New England Patriots were held to less than 20 points in that game against Denver? Can we agree that Tom Brady, quickest release in the league, folks, was hit an inordinate number of times? Certainly an inordinate number of times for Tom Brady getting hit in the game. You just don't see that. Can we agree that Von Miller was a big thorn in Tom Brady's side and that Von Miller didn't play in the Super Bowl for the Broncos 2 years ago? So what we have here is the top-rated defense in the league, a defense that gets after the quarterback, a defense that does well against elite quarterbacks, going up against a guy in his mid-20s. Now, the public is going to say, hey, we've seen this. Right? Didn't we just see Russell Wilson against the New England Patriots in last year's Super Bowl? What does the quarterback's age have to do with his ability to perform in a Super Bowl? I just saw Russell Wilson do it. As I've said, I believe Russell Wilson is unusual. Right? Russell Wilson, we're here, saying Cam's going to be the face of the NFL. Folks, someone in his age group has already been to 2 Super Bowls, has already won a Super Bowl. Right? It would take Cam 2 years to get to where Russell is right now in terms of Super Bowl appearances. You'd have to win this one, then come within a yard of the next one. He's not where Russell Wilson is today. So my point to you is, we saw Russell Wilson do well against top-flight quarterbacks, against a top-flight defense, right? And we have reached the wrong conclusion that the quarterback's inexperience, right? Cam's never been to a Super Bowl before. That the quarterback's inexperience and age doesn't matter. That he's going to rise to the occasion. That, hey, if Russell did it, Cam Newton can do it. Right? We can just plug him in, even though he's going up against the defense. Look this up. That has only allowed one guy this entire football season. One guy to pass for more than 300 yards against them. Right? Think about it. By the way, that one guy is a 2-time Super Bowl winner. It's Ben Roethlisberger. Right? Let me just say, Big Ben played Denver twice. Right? He passed for 354 yards net the first time they played during the regular season. In the playoffs, without his running back, without the backup running back, he was able to pass for 311 yards. Understand, nobody else this entire season topped 300 net passing yards against the Denver Broncos. Let me make a point, too. Would it surprise you to learn that the Denver Broncos played Tom Brady twice this year? Twice. The first time, Brady threw for 262 net passing yards. The second time, he came a little bit closer. That was the AFC Championship game, right? Tom Brady that game, like Ben Roethlisberger, didn't have his starting running back, didn't have the backup to his starting running back. Tom Brady that game threw for 292 yards. Did you know that Aaron Rodgers went up against this Denver defense? Folks, I'm naming the best quarterbacks in the league. Did you know that Aaron Rodgers netted 140 passing yards against this Denver Bronco defense? Did you know that Philip Rivers, right, look at his gunslinging totals, went up against this Denver Bronco defense this year? Did you know that Philip Rivers netted 179 passing yards against this defense the first time? The second time, he got to 207. You just saw the Pro Bowl. You just saw David Carr in the Pro Bowl. Did you know David Carr went up against this defense twice? The first time he got 223 net passing yards. The second time he got 99 net passing yards. If you look at the record of great quarterbacks against this Denver Bronco defense, you're going to be stunned by how well the Denver Bronco defense has done this year. Right? You're going to be absolutely stunned. Right? Understand, the last 2 weeks, the most first downs Denver has given up in a game is 20. Right? And that's against Ben Roethlisberger and Tom Brady. Now let's look at Cam Newton. Would it surprise you to know that Cam Newton completed less than 60% of his passes this year? Let me say this too. The Denver Bronco defense is dominant against the run. Understand, there's a novelty aspect, isn't there? It's a novelty aspect to the Panther offense, right? They actually run a read option at times. Now, given the speed of the Denver defense, given how fast they can fill holes, folks, the guys are lightning quick. DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, right? They're not trying to overpower you. They're trying to get there first. Do you really believe that the read option, which most teams don't consider running in the National Football League, right? Over time, it becomes ineffective. Where's RG3 now? We don't even know what team Colin Kaepernick is going to be on next year. Right? That read option, once people study the film, and you're kidding yourself if you don't think that Gary Kubiak and his crew aren't in front of projectors and looking at video extensively. Once you figure out the read option, once you start blowing up the quarterback on the play, right? Letting the other team know, look, dude, we're going to hit your QB. He can shuffle the ball off to Jonathan Stewart. He's going to be hesitant to continue running this offense. Right? Denver has 2 weeks to prepare for this offense. Denver didn't just play one of the coldest games in NFL history on the road against Minnesota the week before coming into the Super Bowl, like Seattle did. Right? Just compare the first half of the Seattle game to the second half of the Seattle game against the Panthers. My point to you is Denver is going to be prepared for the read option. Now, if Brady and Aaron Rodgers couldn't get 300 net passing yards against the Denver Broncos, why should I believe that Cam Newton, if that running game gets dampened, is going to know what to do with that Denver secondary? Has anyone figured out that Aqib Talib is in that Denver secondary? That Chris Harris is in that Denver secondary? Folks, that Denver secondary is so thorough that future Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady did not even attempt to pass the ball over 4 quarters to Brandon LaFell in a playoff game. It's so thorough you hardly heard Edelman's name last week, Amendola's name last week. So what you have here is a guy in his mid-20s with a sub-60% completion rate on a team that most people didn't expect to win 10 games. Just look at the betting futures at the beginning of the year. Going up against the number 1 rated defense in the National Football League, a defense that has only allowed 300 net passing yards to one guy all year. And you mean to tell me that the casinos are going to give me, with the top-rated defense, a defense on a roll, right? A defense that has not allowed, believe it or not, an opposing team to score more than 20 points during their last 4 games. You're going to give me 6 points on a neutral field? Think about it. Denver is getting 6 points, and they aren't even playing the game in Carolina. If you were to add the 3-point home field advantage, at these odds, Denver would be getting 9 points against Carolina in Carolina. No, this match is mispriced. Even if you believe that Carolina is better than Denver, folks, they're not 6 points better. They simply aren't. So, I like the Denver Broncos here. Understand, too, Carolina's been blowing out teams, right? You know why. Because during a season where I play on a Sunday, then I play Carolina the next Sunday. When I show up for the game, they have this provocative offense nobody else runs. It's hard for me to figure out exactly what to do, right? The novelty is jarring. Now a team has 2 weeks to prepare for it without playing Minnesota in Minnesota weather. Right? Let's look at Carolina's 2 playoff wins. Quite frankly, I'll be blunt. I thought they beat 2 teams that were better than them. Now, think about it. Forget what I think. I'm just a hack here online. Let's look at the line on the last game. Now, you know that Arizona got tested against Green Bay the week before, right? Larry Fitzgerald had to be Larry Fitzgerald to get that game into overtime, right? There was a lot going on. You may have seen the highlights. Larry Fitzgerald cutting across the field after catching a pass, right? The team needing the yardage, right? Aaron Rodgers able to, get a Hail Mary in that game, pull a rabbit out of a hat. Right? Carson Palmer finally winning his first playoff game. Then, of course, they get to Carolina, and you, the betting public, had Arizona as just a 3-point underdog. Think about it. That game was in Carolina. And you, the betting public, laid half, just half, the line that right now the casinos are pricing for the Super Bowl. What they were telling you is that if Carolina played Arizona on a neutral field, that game would have been a toss-up. Now look at how that game unfolded. Folks, I got to tell you, when 2 equal teams play each other, and one turns over the ball more than half, a dozen times, I'm guessing most of us will understand that the team turning over the ball is going to be at a distinct disadvantage. Well, let's go back a week. You have Carolina playing Seattle. Seattle's trying to defrost itself from the Minnesota game. Right? Marshawn Lynch had to reacquaint himself with teammates. He'd been out so long. There's no continuity there. Right? Marshawn is returning from injury. The team goes out and is flat for the first half with 2 turnovers. They come out the second half. They shut out the Carolina Panthers in the second half. We can come up with a lot of explanations. Oh, they were playing prevent defense and all this other stuff. Folks, that's a blowout the second half. Russell Wilson ends up with over 300 passing yards. Right? So what I think's going on here is folks are ignoring the adversity that the teams Carolina just beat in the playoffs had the week before. Right? For Arizona, tough game against Green Bay. Right? For Seattle, tough game, tough conditions against Minnesota. Right? And then they're ignoring the turnovers, and aren't you disturbed when you see a team riding high with so many net turnovers? right? Carolina led the league in turnover ratio, right? They recovered the most turnovers in the entire league. You know, turnovers are really one of those lucky occurrences in a game, right? The other team decides they're going to drop the football, right? The other team makes a mistake, right? Russell Wilson doesn't see Luke Kuechly. The next week, Carson Palmer doesn't see Luke Kuechly. He gets pick sixes. What happens if Denver doesn't turn over the ball? What's the advantage that Carolina has in this game? If it's based on their ability to get turnovers, folks, that's too random. Maybe you get turnovers in this game, maybe you don't. Right? In my opinion, everything has broken Carolina's way this year. Right? Everything. I think the line is priced for perfection by Carolina. I think the line is priced with the idea that Peyton Manning's going to come in and turn over the ball a lot. Right? Let me close by saying this. In boxing, we have a concept. It's called the championship rounds. You get late in a fight. And then the question is, okay, this is a close match. Right? It's close. The championship rounds only matter if the fight's close. Right? It's a close fight. Who's accustomed to being in these situations? Who, in a close match, can rise to the occasion when it matters most at the end of a fight? Now let's look at these two teams, folks. The team that has won the most close victories between these two teams are the Denver Broncos. Right? Carolina hasn't been tested the last 2 weeks. They're up big against both Seattle and Arizona. They're up big. Right? In the Seattle game, they end the first half up by more than 30 points. Now compare and contrast that to the Denver Broncos last 2 weeks. Denver's playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's in the lead late, folks. Peyton Manning mounts a drive at the end of the game. Right? The chips are down. It's now or never. It's do or die. Peyton Manning delivered. Denver 23, Pittsburgh 16. Look at last week. Right? Tom Brady bringing New England back. That game comes down to a 2-point conversion. It's that much of a nail-biter. Let's just say Denver the last 2 weeks has been in some tough situations. If they get into a tough situation against the Carolina Panthers in a big game, hey, it won't be anything new for them. They've been in the playoffs this year in tough situations. Can you say the same for the Carolina Panthers? Can you? Right? Let me say too, Peyton Manning. Everyone's saying, oh yeah, Peyton can't throw the ball, right? Oh yeah, Peyton's terrible. I want to direct everyone back to November 1st. People were saying Peyton Manning was terrible then. Right? The team was unbeaten, but they had just beaten Cleveland by 3 points in an overtime game. So, of course, they're playing the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, a team that would end up in the playoffs. A team that the year before made the AFC Championship game against Russell Wilson, no less. And you know the rest. Peyton Manning comes out and leads the Denver offense to 500 total yards of offense. Right? It's off a bye week. It's week 8 of this season. 500 yards of total offense. 500 yards of total offense. Right? Now, Peyton, more than anyone else, knows what went wrong 2 years ago against Seattle. He knows he called too many audibles. He's been to Super Bowls. He has a knowledge base. He knows the mistakes he's made in Super Bowls. Cam Newton has no such experience. Peyton Manning this time knows he's not going up against Russell Wilson. Right? So, maybe the public has this wrong. I know this is a minority view. But you're getting 6 points and your team has the top-rated defense in the National Football League? I'll take the bait. I like Denver plus 6 in the Super Bowl. Let me say this too. Look at the depressed lines on the money line here. Right? It's almost like the casinos are daring people to take Carolina on a money line. Aren't you a little bit nervous by that? Right? Don't you get the feeling that the casinos know that Denver has at least a 40% chance of winning this game outright? At least a 40% chance. I'm not saying Denver should be favored. But what I'm saying is this line is crazy. Folks, it opened at 3.5. 3.5. They've given you 2.5 points of line movement. Don't you think the casinos know something? Don't you think there's some risk management people in the back there saying, hey, you know what, let's leave this at 6 for a while. Let's even tempt people to take Carolina on a money line. You have a newbie quarterback in the Super Bowl against the top-rated defense in the National Football League. And somehow that newbie quarterback is laying 6 points. Right? This is after this defense has beaten Brady 4 Super Bowl rings, Ben Roethlisberger 2 Super Bowl rings. By the way, Brady 6 Super Bowl appearances, Roethlisberger 3 Super Bowl appearances. Now they're going up against a guy with no Super Bowl appearances on a team that hasn't been tested for weeks. That, of course, lost to a divisional opponent, the Atlanta Falcons. Right? No one knows teams better than the teams in their division. Right? I want you to study that Atlanta team. So the 6 is too many. Right? Laying 6 is simply too many. Don't confuse Cam Newton with Russell Wilson. Just think about how they celebrate touchdowns. Right? Now look, guys could be as celebratory as they want. Right? You just ask yourself, who do you feel has the better leadership skills? Right? If there's a question, I want you to go back to last year's AFC Championship game. Seattle's getting beaten by Aaron Rodgers and company on their home field. Right? Seattle needs things like a 2-point conversion, an onside kick. They need crazy things to happen to win that game. I want you to look at Russell Wilson in that game, and you need to ask yourself, right, how many young quarterbacks could pull this off? Right? I think Russell Wilson's an outlier. If you're looking for a guy who should be the face of the NFL, based on actual performance, look at the guy in his 20s who's been to 2 Super Bowls already, who had to dig deep to get to the Super Bowl the second time against a Green Bay team. A guy who beat Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl. Right? That's experience. Here I have a guy who, big time talent. Right? Big time talent. Celebrates after touchdowns, knows where the camera is. Teammates love him. The rest of the public, not so much. Look at jersey sales. Right? All I'm saying is it's too high of a buy-in for me to believe that that guy should be laying 6 points against Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib. Right? Let's go one step further. This is a Super Bowl. It's for all the marbles. Right? If Peyton Manning comes out and is hurt, can't continue, can't throw the ball 25 yards. Keep in mind, the Colts knocked Denver out of the playoffs last year. The red flags were out. The argument was that they fled the line of scrimmage and Peyton Manning physically just wasn't able to get it done. Has anyone figured out who Brock Osweiler is? I can tell you. I'm a Pac-12 guy. I've looked at Pac-12 football for a long time. This guy was one of the better quarterbacks out of the Pac-12 over the last decade. Right? Great athlete. Great arm. Right? Don't rule out the possibility in a Super Bowl that Peyton Manning won't step away and allow Osweiler to come in. I'm just telling you, if Osweiler comes in, he has exactly the skill set to test a secondary that isn't all that. I'll give Carolina Josh Norman. What about the rest of that secondary? Has anyone figured out that the Denver Broncos actually have a far above average receiving core? Let's say Norman locks up Demaryius Thomas. Okay, great. Who's going to stop Emmanuel Sanders? Who's going to stop Vernon Davis? Who's going to stop Owen Daniels, who scored 2 touchdowns against New England? Folks, that's a big challenge. And the casino is going to give me 6 points? I think the value's with Denver. That's my pick here. I like Denver +6. Let me hear yours. Let's all try to beat the casino. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by. Good luck. I hope you cash a ticket.